Sister Mary Teresa LaBrake, great nun of the Sacred Heart. And just as a little background, I gave 23 years of teaching career, 20 years as an educational administrative degree and work, and then 16 or 17 years in pastoral ministry. What I would like to talk to you about today is the great benefit that pastoral ministry gave to me in my life. In working at St. Mary's Cathedral in Ogdensburg, New York, I worked with the pastoral associate also from Notre Dame Parish. And together we were sponsoring a grief and loss workshop. We hired speakers. The speakers would give a presentation, and then we would have a break and take time for refreshments. This one evening, as we were there waiting for the talk to conclude and have refreshments, this gentleman came up to me from the group and started just chatting with me and began telling me his story of his life and how his wife had passed away and he was missing her terribly and was sort of at a loss as to what to do with himself. He gave me a background that he had been a lumberman in Canada, and then talked about his family. He had a couple of boys, and one boy had a girlfriend, and there was a baby involved, and how noisy and all it got in the household, and so on and so forth. And he was having a hard time dealing with all these complications in his life without his wife. So I listened. That's all I could do at that point, was listen, and tried to encourage him. Told him a little bit about my own background, because he lived not too far from where my dad also lived in the country. And I shared with him about my having had 13 brothers and sisters, and how noisy, yes, it could get in a household, and how hard it would be for him, and understood what he would be going through. And so he shared that. Break time was over, and we went back to the discussion, the topic and discussion. And when it was finished, of course, we departed for the evening, and then the following week he returned. And again, he sought me out during the break time, started talking with me and conversing with me. And all I could do was give him my time and give him a listening ear and be attentive to what he was telling me. And when this went on week after week until our sessions concluded for that particular season, and I lost, contact with him. And then this one day when I was in my pastoral ministry doing my hospital visitations, I discovered his name on the list. And so I went to the hospital room and found him, and we saw one another again, and we began to talk about, his how things were going and what was happening with his health life and so on and so forth. I believe he had very bad heart problems. I don't know whatever else the issues were. But I asked him if it would be all right if I told Father that he was there, and that maybe Father would have time to pay him a visit, which that did occur, and that happened. And then when his time at the hospital was completed, he was sent home. And then we put him on our sick list. So I started driving out into the country to visit his home and brought him Holy Communion. And we would continue visiting and talking and trying to encourage him about, keeping upbeat with his life and what kinds of things he could do to try to help himself. And also with the relationship between his son and his lady friend. And so this one day when we were talking and sharing after I had given him communion and said the prayers, he said to me, he said, when I was going to those sessions that you had on grief, he said, I was to the point where I thought I was going to commit suicide because I was so distraught. And after talking with you and your being able to be with me and talk with me and keep visiting with me. Those kinds of things helped me, and I was able to move out of that feeling. And so I am very grateful to you for what you did for me. And that was basically the last time that I had had a talk with him. And, or maybe I was back one or two more times to give him communion when he went back to the hospital again. And his time, God took him to himself, where I'm hoping and praying, and I do pray for him, and hope that he is now with God in heaven, enjoying God's graciousness and goodness. Thank you for listening to my story.